What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over what I think is the best loadout for Fortnite Zero build in a Fortnite Chapter 6 Season 4. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite loadout has been so far this season, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting the Season 4 Battle Pass or anything else, it is just Evolve Jake, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the Wrecker Revolver, because I think this is like the staple of the season for most people. And I actually did make a video about this weapon yesterday, going over it more and how great it is and why I think it's probably the best weapon in the game this season. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it in this video. That video will be linked down in the description below if you want to check it out. But in short, with how this season plays, the Wrecker Revolver is pretty much the best shotgun in the game for Zero build. Like, the range on this pistol is incredible, and you can get by without using an AR because of how ridiculous this range is, which we'll get to like later on in the video. Since it is a pistol, you can swap back and forth between, you know, the Wrecker Revolver and another shotgun, or two pistols with no delay at all, which really increases your damage potential in like those close range chaotic fights. If you were, you know, very close to the enemy, the Sentinel Pump is better than the Revolver. It has like a higher damage capability, but with how the season plays and how easy it is to create separation on enemies, especially when you have the medallions, I think the Wrecker Revolver is going to be the best weapon in the game for most people. For mobility, we have the Shockwave grenades and the Shockwave launcher. Both of these are good, and they're, you know, incredibly similar. They both use shockwaves. But I prefer to use a Shockwave launcher since it goes off rocket ammo, and you can carry several more rockets in your inventory than you could shockwaves. With Shockwave grenades, you have 6, and that's a single item slot, and then any more than that you have, you know, will take additional slots. With the Shockwave launcher, it goes off your rocket ammo, so that capacity is in your backpack. And then one downside of the launcher, kind of, is that the purple holds 3 per reload, and then the gold holds 4, and then needs to be reloaded. And normally, like, 3 shockwaves is more than enough for most fights, and you're not going to have a problem at all reloading. But I have had a few times this season where, like, I was chasing someone who was using regular shocks when I had the Shockwave launcher, and the fact that they could just full spam out 6 without needing to, like, reload or anything led to them kind of getting away and creating more separation than I would have wanted. This is a pretty, like, niche problem. It's not like every single player you fight is just going to spam out 6 shockwaves. But if you guys have played this season, you know those people are out there. You could kind of reload the Shockwave launcher as you're using it to travel. But if you're actively pursuing somebody and trying to shoot at them with the Wrecker Revolver to get damage and stop their like overshield from regenning and stuff, then you could run into times where the person with regular grenades outranges you, or, you know, creates more distance than you would like. But as I said, it's a niche problem, although it is a niche problem that comes up somewhat frequently this season. One really nice thing about the launcher, though, is most players you eliminate will have rockets in their inventory. Even if they are using something like a Shockwave launcher, just with how much rockets go around, then you can typically get it off your elim. So, like, every elim is a mobility refresh to you in a way that normally isn't the case with shockwaves, because it's not like every player is carrying shockwave grenades, and the AI bots certainly aren't carrying shockwave grenades. So the fact that every kill you get potentially refreshes your mobility, I think, is really nice. And then also, if you eliminate someone who has a Shockwave launcher in their inventory, it will drop fully loaded for you. So if you have a gold and they have a gold and you use 3 Shockwaves to chase them, when you eliminate them, you could just swap yours for theirs and then not have to worry about reloading, which saves you time and saves you rockets, which is, you know, going to lead to you having more mobility over the course of the game. So I think both of these are good. Just take what you get, but I think most people are going to prefer the Shockwave launcher just because of how much more you can carry without actually needing an inventory slot for it, or without needing additional inventory slots for it. For heals, I think the best choice is the legendary slurps. These don't really spawn that much though, so you can get them by defeating the queen bugs or from the rift drop, which comes in at 4th zone. Getting that rift drop is nice to have these legendary slurps for endgame. There may be other ways to get it as well, but as far as I know, those are the main ways to get it. And so it's the best healing item, but it's not like you're going to have access to it constantly throughout the course of the game. I think heals are really just going to be you take what you can get. Like, the exotic slap fizz is also great, but there's only one of this per match, and you need to go to the exotic bunker to get it. And then I think even then you may or may not get it, because there's only like 2 bunkers, I think. So the exotic slap fizz is great, especially in team game modes, because it carries 300 capacity, and you can heal everybody on your team with it, and you get unlimited stamina for a period of time afterwards. Big Pots, Flowberry Fizz, Chug Splash, all of these are fine. I think it really just depends on what you find. I don't really care for the purple Slurp Juice that much, though. It feels like it takes so long to heal me. So if I had a choice between 3 Big Pots or the purple Slurp Juice, I think I would actually take the Big Pots, but that may just be a slight preference thing. As I said, it's the heals you take what you get. So far in our inventory, we have double revolver, we have a healing item, and we have mobility. So we have 1 item slot remaining. And for the final slot, I think this choice is really up to you. So double mobility is an option if you wanted to run shockwave grenades and the shockwave launcher and then have those other 3 things. I think that works great. Or maybe 2 shockwave launchers, whatever you want to do. I think double mobility is a valid choice this season, and having the double revolver as your only item will work fine if you play aggressive enough. The main problem you would run into with this is going to be cars, though. Also, in this final slot, you could run an assault rifle. That's something I run oftentimes until I get something else I want, which we'll talk about in a moment. But as I said, with how good the pistols are, if you play aggressive enough, and if you play very aggressive, there's not as much need for an AR. But if you aren't the most aggressive player, then you probably will really benefit from having an AR, or if you don't have both medallions yet, or all the medallions yet. So the main 2 medallions I want is the double jump and the slide one. The healing one is kind of whatever. Once you have both mobility medallions, I think it's very easy to make no AR and double revolver work just fine. But if you don't have both those medallions yet, you aren't as free to play as aggressive, I feel like. And so at that point, I often do run an AR, and the AR can help you with potentially dealing with some of these medallion players, because you maybe can open the fight with a lot of damage. If somebody has the double jump medallion, fighting them up close in a neutral fight is really unlikely to go your way. The double jump medallion or even the slide medallion are just so overpowered in close range fights. So if I don't have those medallions yet, hopefully being able to get the kill with the AR or get enough opening damage to the point where the kill is more likely to go my way is something I would like. It's rough though, because these mobility medallions, not only are they great at fighting, but they're great for like escaping and trying to get away. So even if you open with good AR damage on somebody, if they have one of these medallions, or even if not, it's very easy for people to escape this season because of how good the medallions are, and because of how good like shockwaves are for resetting fights, and how plentiful shockwaves are on the map. So that's like kind of another reason why I don't mind not running an AR as much this season, is just because of how easy it is for enemies to escape. But as I've said, if I don't have both medallions yet, it's fine running an AR, or not even just the medallions. If I don't have the launcher yet, which we'll get to in a moment, but like I'll run the AR typically for like early to mid game, and then once I have both medallions, at that point I often have a rocket launcher as well, and then that's where I'll drop the AR. So the AR this season I think is really preference. I think the OXR rifle is incredibly good for long range taps. For full spraying or for mid range, it's not as good. I feel like the hammer is probably the most versatile, and then the Fury AR is the best in close range. So it's really just preference and what feels best and what works best for you as far as the ARs go. I don't think there's one that's just drastically better, unless you have something like the Mythic OXR or the Exotic OXR. Both of these are good. But aside from that, I think it's just preference and rarity. And so the final choice, and what I think is actually the best loadout this season, is going to be having the Swarm Strike rocket launcher in this final slot. Because the Swarm Strike rocket launcher, I think, is probably the most overpowered rocket launcher we have ever had in Fortnite. I believe the gold version of this is capable of doing 250 damage to an enemy if you hit all of the rockets from it. And it is laser guided, so after you shoot it, the rockets will go where you're looking if you keep the rocket launcher out. With shockwaves being the main mobility item this season, and with the double jump medallion being a thing, it's very easy to create situations where you're above the opponent looking down on them, and that's like a prime situation to just let a rocket rip and get like ridiculous damage. And you could shoot a rocket on somebody, they might be dead, but immediately you could just swap to your revolvers and start revolvering them. So if the rocket doesn't kill them, it's going to hit them so hard that your revolvers will shortly after. And with how fast-paced and mobile you can be with all these medallions and with these revolvers, it is so difficult for an enemy to actually deal with that. This rocket launcher is also incredible against cars, which is something I said was the main weakness of running double revolver, was that it wasn't that great at dealing with cars. If you have this rocket in your inventory, you will have no problem dealing with cars, and oftentimes not only will you destroy or disable the car in such a way where like maybe you flip it or knock it into something where they can't really drive it anymore, but you can also get damage on the enemy driving it through the car itself when you shoot the rockets at it. And, you know, again, you rocket their car, you take a lot of damage. Maybe you blow their car up and they take even more damage. And then you're just spamming them with revolvers and they cannot play the game. And if you guys have played Fortnite Zero Build, I'm sure you're aware of how much people just love getting in their car and running away. The rocket launcher completely just invalidates that if you're able to get close enough to them. And cars feels very vulnerable being in a car. So I think the best loadout this season is going to be double revolver, heals, mobility, and then the swarm strike rocket launcher. I'm really hoping they nerf this rocket launcher sometime soon because it is very cheesy in zero build fights and very just easy for you to die and not have as much opportunity to react. I talked earlier about how good these medallions are. The 2 movement mobility medallions are, this combination of them I think is probably the most overpowered medallion combination we've ever had in Fortnite. Like I am surprised at how this season plays, but I very much recommend going for them or trying to get them. If you're not going to land on one of the medallion POIs, I think you want to land near it and then try to get one and then go for the other. Because if you're trying to fight somebody who has both movement medallions, it's going to be a really hard fight. These medallions are also probably one of the main ways to like somewhat counter the rocket launcher. If you have the double jump and the enemy is going for a rocket, you can maybe double jump away or slide away if you have the slide one. But yeah, I cannot express enough how overpowered I think these medallions are and how overpowered the swarm strike rocket launcher is. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more. Let me know down in the comments below what you think the best loadout is. As I said, for me, or in my opinion, it's the double revolver, mobility, heals, and then the swarm strike rocket launcher. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.